Let me read you something from Charles Blow's column in the New York Times on his trip to Dearborn, Michigan. I'm going to read part of it. He writes, the head of the Michigan chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations said he doesn't like Trump and doesn't welcome a second Trump term, but he's prepared to accept that outcome for the sake of punishing Biden. Quote, I'm going to live under Trump because I survived under Trump because he's my enemy, he says. I cannot live under someone who pretends to be my friend. He believes that proving a point about the power of the Muslim vote is worth it. Quote, is it going to be painful? 4 more years under Trump, he asks. I say yes, and we are bracing for it, adding, at least what I have accomplished is, I told every politician, don't take us out of the equation because you will miss. Um, when I read Charles's column, it was chilling because the idea of punishing President Biden at the risk of a second Trump term, I think is I don't agree. I don't agree with that. And so, Congressman Khanna, what is there anything President Biden can do to turn that sentiment around? Can he win Michigan if he doesn't?
I do think he can turn it around. And look, Jonathan, I've been out there campaigning for
Yeah.
the president in Michigan and New Hampshire, South Carolina, California, my home state. And I say that I am very critical of the president where I disagree. Just on today's podcast,
Yeah.
I said he needs to follow more of Obama's policy, and his policy with bear hugging Netanyahu has been a failure. And they still have me as part of his team. They still take my phone calls. Do you think Donald Trump would care at all about what someone like me, let alone the progressive movement or those who are so infuriated at Netanyahu, would think? Absolutely not. And so, at least with President Biden, we have someone who's willing to listen. We have a team that's willing to listen. And that gives me hope that we can move policy towards more justice. The fact that both President Biden and Vice President Harris used the word ceasefire over the last week is a shift in policy. That word used to be taboo in this town. Now, I agree it's not permanent, it's 6 weeks, but the point is that should give hope to all of the organizers out there that their voice is being heard, that their voice does matter. I do think, though, we need a few bold statements from the president that could help us win back not just the Muslim and Arab American vote, but young voters, progressive voters, particularly voters under 40 and voters on college campuses. And that is, he should clearly, in my view, recognize a Palestinian state and say his second term he's going to work towards that. He should call for a permanent ceasefire and a release of all hostages and make it clear that he's working to end the war. And he should be clear in condemning the occupation. And I think if he did that, it would help us win back trust from this coalition. One final point, Jonathan, this idea that we can just target the disaffected Republican suburban voter and win losing the coalition is wrong. Go look at pictures of the turnout of Barack Obama 2 days before 2012, not the Hope and Change campaign, the campaign against Romney. I saw one in Wisconsin. There's a sea of humanity, young people, people of color, people from college campuses. We need that to be able to make sure President Biden has a second term.